Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Film Frauds. For myself, Matt, my two co-host, Mark,
Hello.
and that's it. Provide you with our completely unbiased, 100% unprofessional opinions on movies today, tomorrow, and yesteryear. I'm just kidding. Tyler's here as well. Say hi,
Hi.
Tyler. I had this
Hi.
joke. I thought of it like earlier today. I was like, it'd be kind of funny if I did that for no context at all.
You woke up
But-
and you're like, this is my day.
Yeah, that's what I spend my mornings doing before Film Frauds, thinking of introductions and funny ways to start off because we're on top of providing completely unprofessional opinions. We also have some humor as well. But Mark,
Right.
today we're talking about a special movie that neither of us recommended. What are we talking about?
So today we're talking about North by Northwest,
Yeah.
recommended by our loyal viewer Jeff Davidson. Thank you.
Hi, Jeff.
Uh,
Thank you.
So a little background for me with Hitchcock is I've seen, prior to North by Northwest, I've seen 4 of Hitchcock films. It's Rear Window, Vertigo, Psycho, and The Birds, and now North by Northwest. And North by Northwest came out in 1959,
Yep.
I believe.
Yes.
And
Nice job.
I watched it last night for the first time, and I loved it. It was great. There's a lot to talk about in this movie. In terms of the films that I've seen from Hitchcock, this is probably up there for me in the 5 that I've seen. So, Tyler and Matt, what'd you think?
So I feel like a few things should be prefaced, at least for us, because Hitchcock is is arguably the most famous filmmaker of all time. One of the most.
There could be a case for it. There could be
a case for it. So I feel like a lot of like the stuff we're going to talk about here today, and a lot of the appeal of Film Frauds is the fact that the longer you watch us, the more you're going to see our movie taste develop. So we don't have a ton of exposure to Hitchcock, and I think that's the charm. We might sound like we don't know what we're talking about. That's because we haven't divulged as much into his stuff. But it's also like Hitchcock is such like what's it called?
Behemoth.
Yeah, behemoth of a kind of thing. He's so enigmatic, and he's so one of a kind that it's very hard to like fully narrow it down. So we'll try to do it the best we can, but we'll see. Speaking of that, though, I've seen a few Hitchcock films. I watched 2 when I was like 15, and I don't count movies I watched then as really kind of grasping them. I watched Psycho and Vertigo, and when I rewatched
You're
Psycho,
too busy playing Angry Birds.
I was too busy playing Angry Birds and vibrating for all the sugar I was eating.
Yeah.
So when I rewatched Psycho, I was like, God damn, I didn't really get this when I was 15, and didn't get a chance to rewatch Vertigo, but I imagine it's the same thing. But to prep for this, I watched To Catch a Thief, I watched Dial M for Murder, and I watched Rear Window. And then I watched North by Northwest, and this one is also excellent. And this is just like an all-around yes.
Wait. So I thought when you saw Rear Window this week, that was the first time.
That was the first time I've seen Rear Window.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
Rear Window is incredible. To Catch a Thief probably is my least favorite one I've seen so far, and then Dial M for Murder just kind of like hit. I think I like Dial M for Murder more than any of the other ones I've seen so far.
Wow, that's a big claim.
It's really even more than North by Northwest. But saying that, North by Northwest is a wonderful product of its time that I think has aged really, really well.
Yeah.
But we also might have someone who disagrees with that. Matt, how's it going? What are you up to?
So I've only seen one Hitchcock film, and that's North by Northwest, and I watched it 2 nights ago. I should have watched more, but I had 7 free days of Shudder, so I had to use that while I could. Shudder's not worth getting. It's pretty bad, actually.
Okay. That's a review right there. We'll post this in our own video.
Yeah. So I canceled my subscription right after because I just wanted it for free. I think this movie is okay. I don't really know. I was expecting something different. And sometimes it took me a little bit early on to realize that it was going for a more fun tone. Like I get kind of reprimanded a little bit for being too critical on old movies. So like I was kind of going along with some of the goofier stuff earlier on, thinking like, oh, this is just the way they're filming it, and it's gonna continue keeping a serious tone. I'd say that I enjoy the first act, and I enjoy the last act, but the middle really is really like slow and sluggish to me. But we can get more into like the intricacies of this movie.
So I have like 2 quotes, one from Hitchcock and one from the writer of the movie, Ernest Lehman. So essentially, this movie comes out right after Vertigo. Vertigo is kind of viewed as Hitchcock's like magnum opus of a film, but Vertigo bombs. No one sees Vertigo, so he's like, "I'm gonna make North by Northwest." And his quote for North by Northwest is that he wanted to do something fun, lighthearted, and genuinely free of symbolism permeating his other movies. And then the writer is on record saying like he mocks people who tries to look for symbolism in this movie. This movie is basically the modern day, or this is like the 1950s version of like a Marvel movie in a sense, where it was going for pure blockbuster entertainment off the heels of a kind of a more thematic and thought-provoking movie that bombed. So this is kind of like but that's what's interesting about this movie is we view this as a Hitchcock movie, and we view Hitchcock as this renowned like artistic filmmaker, and then he makes a movie like North by Northwest that's aimed to just be this like kind of crowd-pleasing, lighthearted, fun movie. And I think that's a really interesting context to frame this from, because it's kind of like you ever in English class and people like the jokes of like the shades were blue, and then the teacher would go like the shades were blue because this is how the author's feeling.
Everything has meaning.
Everything has meaning. This is how I kind of feel like North by Northwest is like there are themes of like deception, and like there's ties to like the kind of like Cold War espionage and stuff like that. But ultimately, I think it's just kind of like it's going for a fun movie, and I think it excels in every aspect of that. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I kept thinking like this feels sort of like a James Bond film. Like I've only seen the most recent ones, like with Daniel Craig. So I haven't really seen all the old Bond films, but it sort of gave me that vibe. Like it was just like just so extravagant for its own sake. Like think about the scene with the plane, how awesome that one is.
Yeah.
But like in reality, would that be realistic? Like I just don't feel like that's how they would have taken out. Oh God, I can't remember the character's name.
Roger Thornhill.
Roger Thornhill.
Yes.
I can't remember the fake name either. God.
George Kaplan. Come on, Mark.
George Kaplan. It would be like the most like inefficient way to like take him out with a plane. So I think that knowing that context now, that makes a lot of sense. I think did Hitchcock go on to make Psycho after this one?
Yeah, Psycho was 1960.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, he made that for really cheap.
Yep.
Like super cheap, and then he made so much off of it.
Yeah. And Psycho is arguably his most classic movie. It's one of the most classic movies of all time. Like, what happens in Psycho without having seen Psycho. That's how relevant it is.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right.
Matt, what didn't, like, you mentioned you weren't a big fan of the second act. What specifically about the second act or any other aspects weren't you a big fan of?
So I'll start with the beginning, because I was kind of thinking, so again, I haven't seen any Hitchcock movies, but I was thinking this would be like sort of like a psychological drama more than anything else. And I kind of started off that way, at least for me, because you have that mystery of him trying to figure out, like, if he actually did experience that kidnapping that really happened. And then you go to like the UN, and everything has that like art is it Art Gecko or Art Greco? Art Gecko.
Art Greco.
Art Greco style of the
Greco-Roman.
UN. Yeah. And you sort of feel like he's starting to lose it, because you feel like the setting's starting to change and everything. So I was like, oh, he's kind of losing his mind here. And then they get on the train, and then it has like that scene where he meets blonde lady, and he's got, and then that scene where he goes like where he just trusts him immediately, and then puts him in the train hour and goes, oh, think with that way, and the cops go, okay, and it kind of becomes more of like that fun kind of spy thriller movie, and I was still in my mind, I was like kind of still taking it seriously and thinking this is kind of weird, decision. And also I just didn't really find like the whole train thing to be very necessary. Like they're on the train for so long, and it's kind of to build the relationship between like the two main characters, but it felt very like unnecessary to me. And then, like I say, it picks up again later on when I kind of start to realize what the movie was going for. But I was very caught off guard by how like immediately like whimsical and kind of goofy it gets, because at least in my mind, I was kind of interpreting it as being more serious, at least earlier on.
Yeah, I was sort of expecting that as well, given that I knew that he did Vertigo and Rear Window before this. And I should also say that what you were looking for in North by Northwest, Matt, you will find in Vertigo.
Okay, I'll check out Vertigo.
And but I think like in the first 15, 20 minutes, Roger Thornhill is just, he has all these quips, as he's like just walking around. He's just like, he's just so snappy to everything. And it's it's kind of funny. You're chuckling. So I think from within the first 10, 15 minutes, I was like, oh, it's this kind of movie. As for the train sequence, I did feel like it was long, but it felt very Hitchcock. And also in regards to the train sequence, I loved how it started, where it's you get this outside shot of the train, and then it's sort of like the camera just like turns into the interior, into the cabin, and then when it ends, it goes out and shows the exterior of the train. But yeah, Hitchcock and his he shows a lot of love for his female protagonists, so they get a lot of how do I say, the screen time or whatever.
It's development. It's like a simple, you have to frame the movies from 1950s, and female characters in the 1950s did not necessarily contain a lot of depth. And in this one, in Hitchcock films, I mean, you just really have to look at kind of like Dial M for Murder and Rear Window, especially, where these female characters are entirely independent in their own figures. Like Grace Kelly in Rear Window.
Oh my God.
Is intelligent. She's witty. She can keep up with Jimmy Stewart, and she has her own kind of goals and motivations, and she actually takes the movie in her own actions or her own hands later at the end of the movie, which I won't spoil for you, Matt. But he does play his female characters with a certain amount of respect. Noted that there's very much record of him being a dick to female actresses behind scenes. Yeah. And specifically in this movie, he did not like the main actress, Eva Marie Saint. I can't remember the character's name, which is bad considering I just watched it. But there's he hated her wardrobe so much in the movie that he dragged her to costume to hand pick out everything. And he's just this very controlling figure behind the scenes. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of stories about that. Also, remember in Rear Window when Grace Kelly appears for the first time? Just the way the camera just sort of beholds her as she sort of steps into the light in in front of Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, she's an angelic looking figure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So he gives a lot of love to I guess in terms of screen time. But back to the second part with the train, I would agree that it sort of overstays its welcome. I feel like, although I do really enjoy this film, it definitely sort of hindered my love for it just a little bit. So I would say I agree with you. I would agree with you, Matt, to a lesser extent.
Okay.
I was in a similar boat with you. There's this, I can't believe, all right, we usually have some really dumb comparison each movie, each episode. Yeah. So here's the throughout for the day. There was a 2009 movie starring Liam Neeson called Unknown, where Liam Neeson plays a guy who's confused for basically a spy. But spoiler alert, it turns out he was in a car accident and he was on a secret mission, and his amnesia morphed his spy identity, his alias, with him, so he thinks he's that person. That's where I thought this movie was going a little bit, until ultimately you read more about it and you're like, no, he's just kind of want to have fun. It's ultimately why Cary Grant's character, Roger Thornhill, is never that in the scene in Network, where the guy's like, I'm mad as hell, and he doesn't that kind of reaction. There's never that kind of reaction, because that tonally changes the movie from one of where Cary Grant's this suave figure, just I don't know what's going on, and then eventually kind of a more traditional hero, and not where he's just running around and things are confusing and you don't know which is which. It just changes tonally that movie. But the comparison was, that's where I thought this movie was going, where he is this figure but has lost some sort of identity, and it eventually morphed into a realization, and the movie doesn't do that. And I actually really kind of love where the movie goes. The fact that it is so Cary Grant's character development is, he's a witty kind of slightly bumbling idiot who is just he's just very manic person a little bit, and then eventually
he goes with the flow,
and then eventually he transforms and he starts to actually become George Kaplan, culminating in the final sequence on Mount Rushmore, where he's basically the spy hero, despite being a businessman in the first half of the movie. And it's that like very like subtle character arc where you see him like adapt and learn to overcome. One of my favorite sequences in the movie is at the art house sequence, where he has to get out of there alive or get captured by the police. So he thinks of like creating a scene, and it's just like there's such a clear difference between the Roger Thornhill at the beginning of the movie, where he has like he meets those people, the executive business people, and he just feels so unprofessional. He's like sitting, like the way he's sitting and the way he's acting, and people are just staring at him. And then culminating in that, I really enjoyed his character arc in this movie. But I understand, like Matt, if you didn't like what you think of his character arc. What do you guys think of that as a whole?
I thought it was fine. Some of it, so like I kind of had a problem with the underdeveloped villains, in my opinion, underdeveloped. I feel like there wasn't really like a decent dichotomy. Like the best parts of the Bond movies are like the villains. You can see in like Skyfall. So Harvey Arredov kills in Skyfall, or in Casino Royale. Like we think Mads Mikkelsen's really good. Like people I think over exaggerate his role. He's pretty like he doesn't really he kind of fails
there.
A lot. But and even in classic Bond like Sean Connery stuff, I kind of thought that he was good. Nothing particularly amazing. Again, with older movies, some of the cheesiness I kind of just assumed was supposed to be taken seriously, so I kind of had a difficult time interpreting what was supposed to be funny. And then like again earlier on, I was kind of interpreting the funnier stuff as just being a product at the time. Whereas and I did kind of pick up the whole him changing kind of subtly with him acting more like a spy, stuff like that. But it wasn't amazing to me. I kind of thought his chemistry with the lady was okay. I thought he was pretty good in the action scenes, and his acting was good in that jet flyer scene.
The crop duster scene,
Duster scene. Again, like I mean, it was good. It just didn't really stick out to me as being anything particularly memorable.
Yeah. Mark, what did you think about kind of Cary Grant character development, anything like that?
I really, I thought it was great. Just sort of seeing him slowly turn into the marketing executive into this George Kaplan spy hero. It was awesome. And I got to say, like, in terms of the story as well, the fact that the final act was on Mount Rushmore, I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I can't believe the movie ended up here. This is awesome.
It's very creative.
Yeah. So, I just sort of took it for what it was, and I was just like, just had such a good time. Yeah.
Ultimately, I'm going to step on guessing game for a quick thing. One of my things was like, this did inspire James Bond. Like, this is very much like, this is seen as the first James Bond film, mainly because it has those, it's that globe-trotting, like...
Had the books out before?
I think so, but this is also, there wasn't a James Bond movie before this. So there's definitely, like, the inspiration for there. I mean, if you think about where this movie goes... Was
it original Casino Royale, like in the 1950s?
I think 1950s? This does predate any James Bond movie. I know that for certain. I'm pretty sure. 75%, maybe like 65. We'll figure it out after. But no one call me out on it in the comments. But ultimately, like, if you think about this movie goes from like a city to backwoods mansion to a dusty rural farm to then Mount Rushmore. It's like, it's very, very impressive, like, watching this movie, like, weave throughout and assume this kind of, like, bombastic, larger-than-life identity, which feels so much grander than it was at the time. Like, this movie feels a lot grander than movies that have come out now, despite being, 60 years old now? We're looking at 61? I find it to be very impressive. And Hitchcock, I mean, I don't know if anyone's seen, in our comments, has seen Dial M for Murder, but Hitchcock is very aware of making the audience aware of the camera and like how the camera moves. And Dial M for Murder is very much a bottle movie, where Dial M for Murder takes place essentially in one room, but it's the way in which he frames shots and the creative like angles he does. Like, there's this wonderful one shot, North by Northwest, where he's running out of a building, and instead of placing it like he does like on a green screen, he shoots it from like way above, so you see Roger Thornhill as an ant running on the sidewalk. That's a very modern way of like like framing a shot, and I think that just speaks to Hitchcock's like how he's a larger than life filmmaker, and the fact that it's 1959 and we're looking at that is incredible.
I also like how the credits are written on the building, on like the surface of the building. Like, you compare it to, like, not to talk about him that much, but in Charlie Kaufman and I'm thinking of ending things where it's like it's all small and it's like it feels like it's trying to be like, whoa, daring, like look at this interesting way we're doing the title card. Like, I don't know, it feels more natural with Hitchcock. Like, that felt like really cool and fitting for like the tone of the movie.
Yeah, and I think that's Mark. We have gotten into beef about older movies versus newer movies and understanding context and like framing a movie from like that context. And I went into this movie with the mindset. We talked about this in our objective, why video essays are objectively bad kind of thing. And ultimately, like, you have to a good way of viewing movies is framing it from the time period. And ultimately, I think that works in some areas, and I think I am biased by contemporary kind of like movies. Like, we'll get to it, but I'm like half of a fan of the Mount Rushmore sequence. But my stuff I didn't like is definitely skewed for me being like growing up with contemporary action movies.
Right.
Like, if you think about it, like that one sequence where Roger Thornhill fights that main knife throwing guy, it's a quick roll down the scuffle, and then there's the knife, and then he just kind of goes like, and then just like a light push, and the guy goes and then it falls off. You look at it and you go, that kind of sucks, and it kind of takes you out of the movie a lot. But it's also hindered by the fact that
like how it ended, like basically 2 minutes after that was a bit of a letdown too. Like, he rescues the girl, and it's like they ran out of budget right at the end.
Yep. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
There's a lot of this movie is basically very much Hitchcock had full control of this movie. Absolutely, like, and there is only about
he didn't write the screenplay though.
He did not write the screenplay, but in terms of directing what's in the movie. So when this movie was shot, there was only from all that was shot to the final cut, there was only about 5 seconds taking out. This is like what was shot is what you saw in the movie. There's no like big editing room cut. Like, you hear times like the director's cut of this movie was 4 hours long. They had to trim it down to like 105 minutes or something like that. No, this is like the movie is 2 hours and 16 minutes long, and Hitchcock had 2 hours, 16 minutes, and 5 seconds of film, and they just cut the 5 seconds, and that's the movie we got. And I think there's a lot of just really commendable stuff in this movie.
Yeah, I just want to quickly address what you said before about like the Mount Rushmore sequence and all that stuff. I think if you were to like look at it, through the contemporary lens, you'd be like, oh, well, like if a movie came out today that had like a sequence similar to that where it's like Mount Rushmore and all that stuff, it wouldn't be that amazing, because we've seen, like think about like ever since like Point Break came out, just these extravagant scenes and whatnot. But just like, if you were like living in 1959 and you saw that, it'd be like, holy crap, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So, and I also want to talk about like the end scene, like real quick about, how it's sort of abruptly ends.
Yep.
I loved that transition from like pulling her up to like the rock to like pulling her up into the bed.
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
I know it's very abrupt, but it worked somehow. I was like, oh, okay.
Well, this is like the horniest movie ever made. It is absurd how much like sexual tension there is that persists with Roger Thornhill and I can't remember the main character's name. I'm just going to call her Eva Marie Saint. Her character, there is like a constant, and I think that's like, Matt, I know you weren't the biggest fan of the relationship, but that constant like sexual tension and flirting, and then the like adding context that, oh, she's a double, so like she's double agent. Oh wait, but she actually does care about him, and she's actually on the good side, and like that eventual like blossoming together. You're right, Mark. Transitions from like a rescue basically right into like a marital bed kind of sequence with. I'm pretty sure you guys caught on this. The final shot of the movie is a train entering a tunnel. Come on.
Oh yeah.
Hitchcock.
Wait, what does that mean?
Hitchcock. It's a
Think about
phallic
it.
symbol. It's for sex.
What?
It's a phallic symbol. It's for sex.
How?
It's a train entering a hole, a phallic-looking object. I hate you so much, Matt. I hate you. I wasn't sure if you was like,
got you.
Get it?
Got you,
bastard. But Kubrick, not Kubrick. Hitchcock is on record like that's a phallic symbol, and he called it probably one of the most impudent shots he's ever made. But that's so purposeful, and it's one of the most iconic shots about the movie because you have this entire build-up, and that's like the subtlety. You get the shot of them like embracing on the marital bed, and the final shot is just like, yeah, they boned. I loved it. I was cracking up because that's just like what a ballsy way, pun intended, to end a movie with basically going, our characters are fucking right now. It's great. It's so wonderful.
Seems like you liked it a little too much.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
Keep in mind that Tyler said a claymation movie has the most realistic sex scene.
It does. Anomalisa.
Oh yeah.
Anomalisa has the best sex scene ever put in the movies. I'll put that right there. No one's gonna. Mark, when you watch Anomalisa,
I gotta watch it.
You'll be like, oh, okay. I see what he's talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what areas have we not talked about yet? Is there any?
Well, I mean, we could talk about.
I don't know if we should get into Hallmark moments quite yet.
What do you guys think of the villains?
They were like, they're kind of like this one again. It's a representative of the tone of the movie. If you look at like Rear Window or Dial M for Murder or Psycho, they're complex villains, but they're also complex movies. Like, but in this one, it's going for the intention that this is going to be a fun, lighthearted movie. And
yeah,
I
don't know. Goldfinger is a fun, lighthearted movie, and Goldfinger is one of the most iconic villains in cinema.
I mean, but I don't think the villain is the important part of the movie. Does that make any sense?
I would agree with Tyler.
It feels almost like he's like an ancillary kind of thing to the fish out of water, Roger Thornhill, character development, and ultimately like the romance between Roger Thornhill and Eva Marie Saint is the main driving force of the movie. I mean, it's what the movie ends on, and it's ultimately what serves as his call to action. When he has a way out, he's like, okay, bye. Like, I'm okay, cool. Like, he's like done. When he's explained there is no George Kaplan, spoilers, and he's like, okay, cool. Like, I'm gonna go. Like, I'm gonna go back to like my job. I'm gonna go say hi to my mom or something like that. Yeah. He's ready to go, but his call to action, the catalyst for the entire final 30 minutes of the movie is like, oh, by the way, that girl that you like belittled is actually like on our side. Like she's trying to like help us, and he's like, and that's kind of like the realization. So I don't find the villains necessary to the story because I don't think that's what the movie is about. I don't know what you guys thought.
I completely agree with you, Tyler. Completely agree.
Yeah. It's a team
I think I needed more characterization and more motivation.
And more motivation?
Personally. Yeah. Because I think that it would have helped the Cary Grant's character a lot more if they had that dichotomy between like what the villains want and what he's going up against. I guess it's a matter of opinion, so I can't really think of any reason to sway you, but for me personally, I just wanted more characterization for the opposition.
Yeah. I think that's kind of, we get a little bit of development or interaction between them at the art house sequence where they're kind of two worlds are clashing, where you see him, he's just like, Roger Thornhill's a I'm assuming upper middle class, like mild-mannered man who has had 2 divorces, they say, because he's too boring. He doesn't live
that was funny.
He doesn't have a boring life. He has a boring life, so he comes into this world, and he's just like, I know he's trying to cause a distraction, but he's also pointing out, like, that's a vase. Like, that's like $13. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, how is this viewed as art? And that's like the clash between their worlds a little bit. Is you have this guy who's in this like high society, sophisticated world with all this like this bubble of people who, when another person comes in and he's like, all right, the bidding's at $1,200, and he's like, I want to bet $2,500. They're like, how does that doesn't make any sense. They're like, the price is higher, but it's not sequential. And then I think it's, I can understand where you're coming from, but I thought there was enough in here, specifically that and in the Mount Rushmore sequence where he's like, okay, George Kaplan, and he like embraces the role. It works. I think there's enough here. I like, what did you guys, do you have, okay, we should go into Hallmark scenes, because I have a bunch here, or I have 5.
I'll
You
go
want to hear?
first.
You want to go first? All right, and then I'll give my
Yeah.
nominations.
I'll say my favorite one last. So I'll mention some sequences, and I'll mention some specific shots that I loved. Well, obviously the first one would probably be like the whole crop duster sequence.
Yep.
I love that whole thing. I was actually waiting for it too, because like the only thing I knew about this film was that shot of him running from the plane.
Yep.
And I absolutely loved it. And then the specific shot, one of the specific shots that we actually already mentioned, was that sort of like that shot from above the building that he comes out and he looks like an ant.
Yep.
Like when I saw the shot, I was like, oh, hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It stands out because it's different.
Yeah, it stands out. Yeah, Hitchcock really surprises you.
Yeah.
I'd say another shot that I loved was when after the incident at the restaurant at Mount Rushmore, or was it a restaurant? I'm not sure. But when they meet in the woods, Roger Thornhill and Miss Candle, that shot of them just sort of just looking at each other, and they're like standing by the cars. I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
My favorite scene in the whole movie is the auction sequence. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are some of my. That was my favorite sequence.
Matt, what do you got?
The UN scene where he looks like an ant walking along the hall.
That was was Hitchcock. Okay, so I got a few more points to talk about, but I have 5 nominations. I thought the drunk driving and like the following police sequence, that entire like 10 minutes where he's drunk driving and he's arrested, and then he's basically like, they tried to kill me, they tried to drink, and like go back to the house. I thought that was all very funny and like very engaging to throw off. Like you get back to the house and they're like, Roger, like, hey, like you're supposed to like, did you not like take a cab? And like you're throwing it off, and you're right.
Drank so much.
Drank so much. Then like Matt, you mentioned like, oh, is he going like, did he imagine like all of that? It's very, very interesting. The crop duster sequence, that slow like establishing where the guy's like, why are they crop dusting where there aren't any crops? And then you see the plane like, loop, and you get like the same reaction as Roger Thornhill, where he like looks at it and he's like, that's coming to me, and you kind of get the realization at the same time. He's like, oh shit. I thought that was incredible. The art auction, I love that, because that's where you get the culmination. We get the emotional kind of like climax between, not the emotional climax, but the conflict between all of that, and then Roger Thornhill kind of becoming a spy-like figure to sneak out of there and not get killed. I actually love the house sequence by Mount Rushmore.
Yes.
Where he's like climbing up and he's trying to throw rocks and get her attention, and he sneaks in and he's like, he throws the matches down, and it's a lot of like, he finds out that they know it's a fake gun. I really liked. And then I had like the fake gun shootout, where it was just like the way it's framed is just like, oh, that's really like lovely. It's a lovely like, he like falls back and gets shot like one more time, and you're just like, this is really cool. Matt, what do you got? Oh, you already said yours.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about the auction sequence. Like, it's just that just like, everyone knows that Hitchcock is the master of suspense, but like that scene was so suspenseful, where he's like looking at like the henchman, and he's like trying to like cause a ruckus so the police come. There's this famous quote by Hitchcock. I can't remember it verbatim, but it's like, like if like a bunch of characters are talking around a table, is like, it doesn't really mean anything, but if you know that there's a bomb underneath, and you the viewer, the only one who knows, like, then it changes everything. It's just sort of like he just knows how to apply this suspense principle everywhere, and it's just I just love it when Hitchcock surprises you.
There's a definite level of respect Hitchcock treats the audience. I think a lot of when the bad guy throws the knife at the UN place, where they go like where they're just like, it's that one shot and you get the knife, he goes, oh, and he falls over. That shot before, you see the henchman and you see him putting on gloves, but they're never the focus of the shot. The focus of the shot is the fact that he's there, and the fact that he's putting on gloves is a very like, I'm going to use this word again, but like ancillary action, where your attention is drawn to the fact that there's a bad guy here. We know who he is, but we don't know his intention fully yet, what he's doing there. And you see him, if you pay, he puts on the gloves, and then you're like, what is, like, you kind of drawn to at the end, and then you see the knife and you piece it together. There's a few of that, like, kind of like building up kind of moments that makes Hitchcock the best, because most directors, I feel like, would show a quick shot of him putting on the gloves and then kind of like keep going. So you're like, what is he doing with those gloves? What's the point of that? But instead you have to kind of like you're drawn into it naturally. It's a very, very wonderful way of framing stuff. There's also like sex in a lot of Hitchcock films is like variants. Like in Psycho, sex is like this action that is like kind of like viewed as like very like scandalous and perverse, and it's like it's ultimately a driving force of the narrative. And this one, it's like The Handmaiden, Matt, where it's an act of like liberation, and sex is used as a weapon. And Eva Marie Saint's body is like her own like weapon, while you have these henchmen shooting guns and trying to like actually like there's this like very masculinity, while sex is
it's very masculinity.
It's a masculine act. Fine, how about that? Yeah, I think it's a very like compelling kind of thing. So, do we have a nomination for our favorite Hallmark scene or Hallmark scene? What do we got all together?
Well, I nominate the auction scene.
Matt?
Auction scene.
Auction scene? Matt, you just sound like you just did that to just agree with us.
Well, I mean, we're going to decide. We can only choose one, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So we got the auction scene. Mark's sleepy time. Our least favorite scene in the movie. Mark will fall asleep in a movie. Wake up, clap, 4 stars, praise it to high heaven.
Yep.
It's basically our least favorite scenes in the movie. Sequences, kind of things. Matt, what do you got? This one seems to be
the library. I mean, the library, the train sequence.
The train?
For me, yeah.
Mark?
For me, I'd probably say when he's drunk driving. I think that scene goes on a little too long, and when a scene goes on a little too long, you lose the weight of of what's going on, and I think that it's overstates welcome for like maybe 20, 30 seconds. I'm not sure, but I was kind of like, okay, he's gonna crash the car when, so that, and then maybe some aspects of the train sequence. But other than that, that's like me nitpicking at this point.
I completely disagree with the drunk driving scene. I think it tonally establishes the movie as this kind of, because he just escaped, he's kidnapped. You're like, what's going on? And then he's forced to be drunk, and you're like, they're gonna kill him, but in a very weird like villain way. Like, why not just like push him off a cliff? He's very drunk. They're like, you're gonna drive off. I get it's like to feign their involvement with it, because he drank too much at the party and he drove off a cliff, killed himself. But I think that's ultimately like take away like the gravity of the act.
Also, if he drank that much whiskey,
he
would have died. Like,
is
that alcohol poisoning?
Is that what happens? Like, how potent is whiskey?
That was bourbon.
Super potent.
Super potent? I don't drink.
That was bourbon.
It was bourbon?
Oh, it was bourbon. So, I mean, like, they're basically the same. But, yeah, he drank a whole glass of it. He would have died. How many shots is that?
That's too many.
It's like 20.
So he would have
6 months worth of shots.
Oh, okay. So he would have died.
Yeah, he probably would have regurgitated it immediately, but if he didn't, he would have died from alcohol poisoning.
Well, how about this? Here's a fight against that. Later in the movie, he says, I am personally keeping a few bartenders in business. So we know
that's still 20 shots of whiskey at once.
That's a very good point. We don't know if it was at once. It cuts away. They could have had him like, all right, drink some. All right,
they're going to sit there and have him take little sips of it.
They're like, all right. We're like, we'll come back. He's like, I'm fine. They're like, take another one. He's like, oh, yes. I like to think they didn't force him to gulp it down.
That'd be pretty weird villain characterization, but okay.
Yeah. So going back to drunk driving, I think it tonally establishes the movie. Like, we're now like, he just escaped, and now here's like this very flippant tone of it.
Yeah. That's a good case.
Which I think is good. I'm gonna go. My vote is half of the Mount Rushmore sequence, specifically like the whoa, and then fall off, and then he slowly steps on the fingers, and then you don't hear a sound effect, and then he falls over, and it turns out he got shot, and you're like, that kind of like, you're like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
But it's also a product of its time. And probably, like you said, Mark, 1959, they're just like, that's the best action scene in all of movie history by that point. Probably what they're thinking. So, so do we have a nomination? I'll you know what? I'll give you guys part of the train sequence. How about that?
Okay.
For the Mark Time moment?
Yeah, I'll give you guys part of the train sequence. but I slightly disagree.
Yeah.
So, guessing game. I've already stepped on one of them with the James Bond inspiration, but I have 4 things. Could you guys think you'll get it right? Matt, you did pretty well last time.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So, who originally thought they had the role of Roger Thornhill?
Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, he got
I guess
So-
not
So
the way Tyler reacts to it.
I didn't even have to think about it. I knew that after, I think, if I'm not mistaken, like Hitchcock's kind of blamed the unsuccessful box office of Vertigo on Jimmy Stewart for being too old.
Yep, exactly. So basically, he knew it, but they were Hitchcock and Jimmy Stewart were such like the tandem that he thought he's like, I want the role of. He saw the Roger Thornhill role and wanted it so bad, but Hitchcock's like, I don't want you to play it. So he basically delayed filming of North by Northwest long enough to where Jimmy Stewart was contractually obligated to Anatomy of a Murder. Yeah, is it the movie Anatomy of a Murder? Yes. So then when he's like, oh, we're going to do North by Northwest, it's like, I can't now. So he wanted Cary Grant the whole time.
Wow.
Like when you can tell when you're getting a question, I guess how it goes.
It goes, crap.
I'm like, I was hoping you guys were like, I don't know any actors from the 50s.
That was a fucking layup.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Who was the, what other actors, what did, the studio MGM was the one who made and produced this movie. What actor did they originally want? This is not part of it, but I just thought this was interesting.
Roger Moore.
No.
Kirk Douglas.
Gregory Peck.
That makes
From
sense. That makes
To Kill a
sense.
Mockingbird.
Yeah.
Come on, Matt. All right. I already said what major film franchise this movie potentially inspire. It's James Bond. So Jesse Royce Landis, who plays Thornhill's mother, was how much older than Cary Grant in this
20
movie?
years.
Oh my God. 5.
She was only 7 years older.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were so
Wait,
off.
what? Wait, what was the question again?
So Jesse Royce Landis, who plays Cary Grant's mother in the movie, Roger Thornhill's mom.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the love. I thought you said I thought you said the love interest.
Oh, no. That's Eva Marie Saint. No, basically, Cary Grant was 55 when this movie came out, and she was 62.
Yeah, I know.
Let's see. So MGM wanted how much of this movie's runtime cut off of it?
5 seconds, did she say?
No, that's how much was actually cut.
Oh.
But how much did
20 minutes.
MGM want cut?
Oh.
So the movie stands at 2 hours and 15 minutes-ish, and they wanted it down to 2 hours. But Hitchcock basically went, no, looked at his contract, and saw in his contract that he had full final control of the movie. So they could do nothing about it. So he got the movie that he wanted. We never actually talked about the pacing, like the length of this movie. Matt, do you like the length of this movie?
When I said that the train sequence could be cut down, I think that contributes. I think the movie could be shorter by a little bit.
Okay. Fair enough. Mark?
I
think this movie's a perfect length.
I think it deserves its length. I sort of got faked out. I thought the movie was going to end a lot sooner than it actually did. When she shoots him, I thought we're in the last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But no, we still have another half an hour to go.
Yeah.
The pacing is good. Obviously it kind of slows down a little bit in the second act, but 2 hours and 14 minutes is good. Yeah. And we are such sticklers about runtime that so this movie deserved its length.
Matt and I are the biggest proponent ever of the 90-minute movie. If you get everything down to 90 minutes, we love you. Cary Grant's suits in this movie. First off, they were voted in 2006 by GQ Men's Magazine as being some of the best suits ever put into movie. Just want to throw that out there. He did look great in them. I was like, oh, that's cool. They were the inspiration for the wardrobe of what Tom Cruise character?
Collateral.
Yeah. Tom Cruise plays
so
Vincent
obvious. Like the Collateral title is him in that suit's iconic.
Yeah, it's awesome. I just want to throw that out there. That was basically inspiration. Tom Cruise, they saw that and they're like, we want that. Yeah, that's a guessing game.
Did you see Alfred Hitchcock cameo in the movie?
What was the cameo?
He was at the right.
He gets on the bus. He tries to get on the bus, but the bus shuts on his face.
How'd you not see that, Tyler?
Wait, say that again?
right at the beginning, right after the credits, there's a shot of him. There's a shot of the street, and there's a bus, and he's trying to get on the bus, but the door shuts right on him as he's getting.
I don't remember that at all.
Hitchcock puts himself in every single one of his movies.
I know he was I saw his cameo in To Catch a Thief.
We're not talking about To Catch a Thief.
What?
We're not talking about To Catch a Thief.
Well, goddamn it, I didn't see it, but I'm still better because I like this movie a lot.
Yeah.
So, grades. What do you guys want to give this movie? Oh, yeah, sorry. Grades. We graded stuff on an A, B, C, D, F scale. I know plus or minuses. We kind of screwed ourselves that way because I gave The Marine a B and Mark gave Dune 1984 a B, which means
Mark's review is not canon.
Mark's review is not canon. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it has been posted to this channel.
Mark, in a hypothetical review of Dune 1984, gave it a B, and I gave The Marine a B, which means our grades of basically Bs are screwed forever.
Mm-hmm.
So, Matt, what do you give North by Northwest, and why?
I give it a C. I can see why you guys like it a lot, but for me, it was just not really working for me. I like spy movies or thriller movies with a little more grit to them, hence like why I recommended The Girl Who's Trying a Tattoo 2 weeks ago. It was just okay. Maybe if I realized what it was going for earlier, I would have liked it more, but as it stands, even if I did recognize the tone earlier, the train sequence is still too long. I didn't really go for the love interest very much, and it was just okay. I don't know. I think it's a bit overrated, but I could see why people like it. I do like the classic James Bond movies too, which is the funny part about it.
Mark, what's the correct grade?
The correct grade is an A.
Yeah.
I don't think I could give this anything less. Yeah, I mean, for all the aforementioned reasons,
Aforementioned? Aforementioned.
Aforementioned, whatever.
He's doing a pun, right, Mark?
Oh, sure.
Damn. Oh,
should give it an A.
Yes, that is what I meant. That's what I meant to do.
Yeah.
That is what I meant to
Mark
do.
didn't get the train in the tunnels thing, so he didn't get the pun right away. That's why.
Right. If I were to put this if I were to rank the Hitchcock movies that I've seen so far, it'd probably be The Birds. Well, this is hard.
You
Psycho.
did not like The Birds at all, did you?
Okay, I did not like The Birds, and you know who also agrees with me is Brian De Palma, for the exact same reason as I do. And
Brian De Palma made a movie that was basically Psycho but worse.
Yeah. He pointed this out. I was watching this old interview on the Dick Cavett show, 1976, and it's Brian De Palma and Martin Scorsese, and Brian De Palma's talking about Carrie, Scorsese's talking about Taxi Driver, and they talk about Hitchcock a little bit, and he was like, The Birds would be a good movie if it weren't for Tippi Hedren, which is the actress who plays the leading role. And I think that's the most valid statement on that movie, because it's like there's so many harrowing shots in it, but I just remember I watched it this year and I was like, this movie's not that good.
Okay.
It has such great influence on cinema, and Hitchcock was really out there with it, but I just didn't really care for it.
Interesting.
So I'd be like The Birds, Psycho, which I love. Okay, even though it's second to last, I love Psycho. Vertigo, which I think is his best movie. Rear Window. No. North by Northwest, and then Rear Window, number 1. So that's my ranking.
I guess I can also give one for the movies I've seen. I'm not going to include Vertigo because after watching Psycho, I realized I probably didn't get anything of Vertigo when I watched it when I was 15. But I'm also going to give this movie an A. The fact that it's not going to be in our Hall of Fame is blasphemous, Matt.
Yeah.
Looking at you. This movie is Hitchcock. The more I watch Hitchcock, the more I just feel his influence. Unlike someone like David Fincher, just feels like a modern day Hitchcock. It's really incredible, a lot of the stuff he did. I think despite being a movie from 1959, it's aged spectacularly. I think I love virtually everything about this, except for, again, maybe the Mount Rushmore sequence was not as exciting as it was in 1959, but that's just because we were not born in 1959 or anywhere near when movies were then. But if I were to give a tentative ranking of the Hitchcock movies I've seen, it would be To Catch a Thief. Then it would probably be, what do I have? North by Northwest, Psycho, Rear Window, Dial M for Murder. As much as I love North by Northwest, actually no, I gotta scratch that a little bit. I forgot. In Psycho's incredible, except for the final 5 minutes where they explain the plot of the movie. So I'd probably bump Psycho down like half a star. I forgot about that. I have never been so like talked down to in a movie before than I was in
Yeah.
Psycho. When they Matt,
That's
Okay.
something like Man of Steel.
that's a good point. Matt, have you seen Psycho?
No.
Psycho is like this very like it's basically a lot of the stuff is like subtle and you're like, oh, what's that? Until the final 5 minutes when a psychiatrist comes in and explains the mentality and the motivation and why a character is for basically 5 straight minutes. Norman Bates is like this because blah 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 blah. And it's just so like, okay. Mark, you seem like you want to burst at the seam.
Well, I agree with the exposition. I I felt a little turned off by it, but I will say that like the camera movements in that scene, when I think it goes like into the room with all the detectives, and then it kind of like goes into the hallway,
Yep.
and then it goes into the room where Norman Bates is, and he's gone like full crazy mode.
Yeah.
And he just like does that like the Kubrick stare at the camera.
Well, that's great. Don't get me wrong, but that 5 minutes
Yeah.
before where
I love that part.
yeah.
Well,
that's
I'm very forgiving about movies. If they like totally blow me away, I can forgive so much.
I can't forgive being talked down to. Basically, when the movie is so expertly conveys the exact thing the psychiatrist says without having to say it, and then the psychiatrist he comes in, he's like blah 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 blah, blah and you're just like, oh, okay. But yeah, Dial-In for Murder is like the best genre film I've ever seen.
I gotta watch that.
It's incredible. Yeah, that's our North by Northwest. Matt, the fact that you did not love this, I would very much be curious to see your thoughts on other Hitchcock films.
I want to watch Vertigo and Dial-In for Murder pretty badly because I feel like those are going for the more paranoid kind of zones.
Well, Dial-In for Murder is not paranoid. Dial-In for Murder is a murder mystery, but done to the best possible way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
I think
paranoid.
I probably like something with a little more grit to it.
So yeah, that's our North by Northwest. Mark and I clearly have good taste, and Matt. Wait, Matt, what did you give Night of the Hunter?
I gave it a C.
You gave it a C?
No, you gave it a D. You gave it a
D.
D.
Oh,
you gave Night of the Hunter a D? Oh my god. Yeah, that's our North by Northwest review. Now, we're going to do our... Ooh, yeah, that was a little bad.
Motherfucker.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do our What We've Been Watching section. We didn't have one last week, so this one might be a little bit longer, or not long at all. Have you guys been watching, reading anything? Matt, what do you got?
Yeah, so I'm going to just like power through this really quickly.
Yeah, I got to power through.
Because we're doing our September recommendations, and I'm going to have a movie I'm talking about here, I'm going to talk about later.
Yeah.
But, so I started watching John Woo movies, because I've never seen any of them before last week. So I watched A Better Tomorrow, which came out in 1986, and Hard Boiled, which came out in 1992. And if you want to get into these, have you guys seen any of these movies?
I've seen Mission Impossible 2. And Face Off. That's the only John Woo movies I've seen.
So these are filmed in Hong Kong with Hong Kong actors because John Woo's from Hong Kong. And if you want to get into the movies, I recommend watching A Better Tomorrow first because it's pretty good. Yun Bat Chow, who is also he's in some
Dragon Ball
movies,
Z Evolution.
What?
He's in Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, but he's like the bald main character in Cartoon Network and Dragon in those movies. He's one of the most charismatic actors of all time, I think, and this is his breakout role. Damn. And then he starred in Hard Boiled, which came out 6 years later. And I'm gonna go more into the movies later on, but Hard Boiled is phenomenal. I kind of love it. It's a really great action movie, and it feels like The Raid in a way where it just feels like people who are really talented and love action movies all come in together to make a really fun, and, but like also like passionate action movie. And A Better Tomorrow is decent. I'm glad I watched it first because the difference between the two movies is like uncanny. I watched Mayhem, which is a Stephen Yen movie. Have you guys heard of it?
I have heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it came out at the same time as Belko Experiment, but it's pretty different actually. Basically, there's like this drug that makes you go crazy, and he works at a law firm that came up with like this excuse where a guy who is a disease, not a drug, a disease. The guy, like a disease broke out in an office, and the guy murdered another person because he had the disease that he had. He could plead insanity, and this law firm got him off from it. So basically, anyone who has the disease can do whatever they want because they can just use that plea, and they can get off from like being held responsible. But then the disease breaks out in their law firm office. Yep. And right at the time where Stephen Yen gets fired. And now he is trying to prove his case by going all the way to the top of the tower to prove to the board that his boss is corrupt and like they messed up on a case. And This movie is really clever and it's really well written. Actually, I was surprised. It's kind of like I compared it to Guns and Kimbo, where it's kind of going for a little more of an edgy tone, but this movie does it way, way, way better. And Stephen Yeun is actually really good in it. This is on Shudder. My only problem with it really is that I think with the directing, there's a lot of action scenes, but it never really feels like Stephen Yeun is like in any danger.
Yeah.
He's pretty on top of things most of the time, but man, this movie is pretty short and it's pretty clever for what it is, and it has like a pretty interesting like law firm plot. So like the whole disease thing, it definitely goes into pretty good detail. I think it's better than Malco Experiment, and we praise Stephen Yeun pretty highly from Burning, and he's pretty excellent in this as well. Like he manages to be sympathetic but also be crazy at the same time because he's infected with this disease that lasts 7 hours. So like he's stuck in this office he's stuck in this building for 7 hours, and it's pretty chaotic. But I really enjoyed it. I think you guys would like it as well.
After the Minari trailer, I gotta watch this mainly because I'm all in on Steven.
Yeah, I mean, he shows a lot more range here. He's very funny in this, and he also handles that like that unhinged side to what this movie's appropriate for. I also watched One Cut of the Undead, which came out a couple of years ago.
Oh, you finally watched it. How was it?
Have you seen it?
I've heard of it. I've really wanted to watch it.
Do you know what it's about?
Yeah, I have an idea.
I don't want to say anything.
Okay.
Because this movie's really good. Like it's really, really good, and it's. I don't even want to say like how I felt after the movie because that would be a spoiler. I would just say just watch it because just don't know anything about it going in. The bare bones plot is that these people are trying to make a film in a World War II base in Japan factory, and then real zombies come out to attack them. And that's all I'm gonna say. Because
was it on Shudder?
Even saying this, like,
okay.
I'm just gonna stop because just watch the movie. Like, I want to talk about this movie in the September recommendations, but because I've given away spoilers, I can't. So I'll just say watch it.
Was it on? Is it on Shudder?
Yeah, but
okay.
Yeah, it's on Shudder. And it's pretty short too. It's very, very good. And like the more I think about it, the more I like it.
Oh shit!
And
okay,
then
I gotta watch it.
I watched a crappy movie called Itchy the Killer, which is also on Shudder.
The Takashi Miike movie.
What?
Takashi Miike, who made like the first Love movie that came out in 2019. Okay.
Yeah. When I saw the trailer for it, it looked kind of like Drive, but in Japan. So I was kind of like, oh, this looks interesting. And no, it's bad. I was kind of digging it the first half of the movie, but there's just so much grotesqueness in it. Like there's so many like murders of like women that are horrible, and like everyone's just a terrible character. And by the end, like there's like this climax where all like the main characters all meet up. I just didn't care. I just wanted them all to die. And it's just so long and gratuitous, and it just didn't like. I was digging it for a while too, and then just hit me. I was like, "This movie's not good," and it's just so like overindulgent, and now I kind of hate it.
Okay, yeah, interesting.
So I mean, watch the trailer for it because it looks interesting, but I would not recommend watching it. And that was like the highlights of what I've seen the past 2 weeks.
Damn, Mark, you want to go? Because I got like 11.
I haven't watched any movies this week.
What about last week? We didn't talk about. Did you watch?
I didn't watch any movies last week either.
You watched The Social Network.
Oh, I did watch The Social Network. That's right.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything to add other than the movie's absolutely amazing.
Yep.
And Trial of the Chicago 7, which is written and directed by Aaron Sorkin, is coming out to Netflix in 2 weeks. And
the 17th.
The 17th. And The Social Network is written by Aaron Sorkin, and it's like obviously one of the best screenplays of the last decade, if the 21st century, maybe even all time. And it's on The Social Network is on Netflix, so and watch it. It's great.
Yeah. That movie has absolutely no right being as good as it is.
That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, it is. Like the fact that it's like I still think about that movie despite seeing it like early September, so about a month now, and the fact that I honestly kind of want to recommend it just so I have an excuse to watch it again.
Yeah.
I watched an ungodly amount of movies since The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I watched 2015's Steve Jobs, the Danny Boyle movie. This is kind of like a really inventive biopic, which it's basically as Mark, you've seen it, right?
I've seen clips from it. I haven't seen the whole thing.
So it's basically like it tells who he is, but before 3 major launches in his career. And instead of going like, this is Steve Jobs, like this is like who he is, it does like a really good job of like putting him in these situations to get a better idea of him. I really like that, but it has that fucking same bullshit Aaron Sorkin sentimentality that's in all of his movies that aren't David Fincher, where you get this like very like complex vision of Steve Jobs, and then it's like kind of butchered in the final like 5 minutes, where it gets really over sentimental. And it's just like, dude, it's like you just painted an entire movie of how Steve Jobs really isn't a good dad. You can't really have this massive character overhaul with this like cliche speech. It's kind of a little dumb, but I mean, it's very inventive. It's very well directed. It's very well acted. But I would say there's a couple other things.
Wait, I have a question. Did you see Jobs?
No, the Ashton Kutcher. I don't know why. I don't know why I ever would.
The better one.
The better one. No.
I've never seen it. There's 2 Steve Jobs movies. I wonder how they compare.
No, I want to watch something good. So basically, there's like one sequence in the movie where there's too much talking, where you have characters from the past and characters from the present are yelling at each other. There's so much yelling that you lose a little bit of what's going on, and then the transitions between the events are a quick little like, here is what's happened in the last like 10 years, and you're like, okay. I watched one of my favorite movies of the decade. I saw this when it came out in 2017. I watched Columbus. I fucking love this movie.
I saw your review.
It's on the.
Wait, Mark, do you have Letterboxd now?
I just looked up you guys' profiles.
Oh.
He's a stalker. He's our fan.
Yeah.
I don't want to say too much about this movie because I'm going to talk about in the September thing, but I also just think it's something people should experience without knowing much about it. Then I watched Ingmar Bergman's Through a Glass Darkly. It's good. It's really, really good. I still think I like Wild Strawberries a little bit more than this one, but in terms of like dark and depressing themes, this one is just like, it's so fucking morose. It's just like, it's heavy and it's really, really engaging, and I really, really enjoyed it. One day we should do like an Ingmar Bergman rankings where we go through the ones.
I would love that.
That'd be tough. I then
I'm gonna take a week off of school just to rewatch all the movies.
Oh yeah,
again and again to make sure the list is flawless.
There's a movie that came out in 2017. I rewatched. It was A Ghost Story. Matt, I think have you guys seen this movie?
I've seen it.
You've seen it? It's really great, and it's it's surprising how great it is. There's a lot of complaints I've seen about this movie is that like its themes don't seem to tie in with what it's going for, but I think that's completely inaccurate. This is a very like human movie, and it's a lot of themes like about the pointlessness of life and how time will basically like eradicate all, but it really isn't. I don't think that's true because there's long sequences of very human moments, and if you guys have watched this long enough already, you know I'm a sucker. If a movie can hit a human moment really well, it's got me like hook, line, and sinker. I think this is a wonderful movie. And then to prep for the trial for Chicago 7, I watched Molly's Game, and the more time passes, the more I think this movie fucking sucks. Molly's Game is a bad movie.
What's its rating on Rotten Tomatoes?
80s.
Yeah, I didn't think it had bad reviews.
I would be very curious, Matt and Mark, if you guys got a chance to watch this before Trial of Chicago. It's on Netflix.
Oh, it's free?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But it's like
Netflix isn't free.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, I mean,
if your parents pay for it, it's free.
Yeah, that's right. My parents pay for it.
Yeah.
So good.
It's poorly directed. It's well acted and has a lot of like, Aaron Sorkin like good moments, but there's like so many like complex. Like I wonder what I can't even remember. Like there's nothing creative, unique, or visually engaging about the directing. It's all like shot versus shot, flat shots. It's basically like it just states what the movie's about half the time, and it's a lot of like over narration, and it's just like there's a sequence at the end which is reminiscent of Psycho, where a character comes in and explains exactly who Molly is and her motivations, and it's just like, what the fuck is happening? We know, we're not idiots. Like, what's going on? It's long, it's over, it's that forced sentimental bullshit that Aaron Sorkin has. I hated it, and it's just so forgettable and unmemorable, and it's wasted potential because it's a really, really interesting story. And then to prep for this one, I watched Catch a Thief, which is good, but it's kind of forgettable. I watched Psycho, which is Psycho, and nothing else needs to be said. Dial M for Murder, which is one of the biggest surprises. It's a bottle episode where everything basically takes place in one room, and then when they finally show outside of that room, it's almost like jarring, and then you kind of come to the realization that the entire movie has been in this room. And then I watched... what?
Is that a spoiler?
What? No. The point of the movie is that's entirely in a room.
Okay.
How's that a spoiler? It's a movie from 1954.
Well, we could discover that on our own.
Well, no, they don't try to hide it. guys are
You just said that it's a crazy feeling when they first walk outside, then you realize they've been in a room the whole time.
Well, yeah, but that's not a spoiler about the movie. That's
It's a
just a
spoiler about when the
realization.
feelings are gonna feel. So now I know it's gonna be in the room the whole time, and I'm not gonna feel the euphoric feeling when they step outside.
Well, that's your own fault.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Yeah,
How dare you?
Tyler.
You guys
jeez.
should have watched it and prepped for this movie. How about
You
that?
should not. You should have
Oh.
done a spoiler warning.
Yeah.
It's like when Tyler spoils Mark McDonagh movies for Mark.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's all the movies I've watched in the last 2 weeks or so. I watched too many movies. I watched way too many movies. Yeah, Matt, that was our what we've been watching section. Matt, what's our call to action? What's the next episode? Will we
Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks, Jeffrey Davis, for recommending this movie.
Davidson. Jeff
For
Davidson.
recommending this movie.
Jeffrey Davis isn't even close.
David
a
and
serial
Davidson are basically the same name.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Maybe that's his nickname. Did you ever think about that?
Oh, I didn't think about
Yeah,
that. Sorry,
no.
Jeffrey
Jeez,
Davis.
Tyler, shut up when I'm doing my plug. Like, comment, subscribe. Comment your favorite film fraud as long as it's me.
Or me.
We're also on iTunes, Spotify, everything you can find on Podbean or whatever app we're subscribed to. Next time, we are going back to Mark for his recommendation on his director series. Mark, what movie are you doing?
We are going to be reviewing The Master, 2012, by
The
Paul Thomas
origins
Anderson.
of Mark's Sleepy Time.
Yeah.
moments.
Yes. Okay, so we call it Mark's Sleepy Time Moments because the first time I watched The Master, it was kind of late at night, and I was like, I want to watch this movie because I've heard so much, and I was like, this movie's amazing, but I can't keep my eyes open. And then I sort of like woke up sort of towards the end, and I was like, wow, that was awesome.
No, but the best part is that when you asked me what I thought of it, the first time I was like, oh, I loved that. That was really good. You're like, yeah, I loved it too. Next time you're like, oh yeah, it was kind of boring. And next time we brought it up, you're like, yeah, I fell asleep during it.
It was a slow like realization, like he passed out for 90% of it.
I realized like I am not smart enough for this movie.
So in The Master, did you fall asleep when he was still on the beach in the first sequence, and you woke up when he was on the beach again and thought no time had passed?
Yeah,
Like,
basically.
oh, okay.
Yep.
Yes. It's on the beach all the time. Wait, Philip Seymour Hoffman's in this movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna do The Master, and then after that is gonna be. Oh, Matt, we're also gonna have our Best of the Decade.
Yeah, we gotta do that.
We gotta do that. We might do that maybe tomorrow. We'll figure that out and stuff like that.
I gotta rewatch Social Network, apparently.
Yeah, you gotta rewatch Social Network. So maybe we'll do that eventually. But yeah, and then we got Trial of Chicago 7. So that's on the docket for us. So thank you guys for watching, and I'm gonna get the final.